Hello guys, welcome back to another video. And today I want to talk to you guys about being kind versus being available and what that truly means. And so this is my first video I've actually done from a recommendation. So if any of you ever have any recommendations for a video, please just post it in the comments or hit me up and I will be sure to make a video about it. So today's request was actually about the topic of being kind versus being available. And I began to think, what exactly does that really mean? Being kind versus being available. And so now I think back to my time in summer school. And when I think back to my time in summer school, I would say that I was a fairly nice person. Don't get me wrong, I still am. But in that process of being nice or being kind or being polite, I mistook that. And I realized the true essence of kindness is being kind to yourself first. And it's not to say be selfish, but it's to say always put emphasis, priority, and moments upon yourself before others. Think about your own impact. Think about how could this impact me? Before thinking about how can I benefit this person, how can I benefit myself? How can I help myself? And that's where the disparity or the comparison truly comes in. When I think of my experience in summer school, everyone would call me asking me like, "Hey, can you help me with this English assignment? Can you help me with that English assignment?" And I was the type of guy, I would help them. I would go out of my way to help them. And in that process, sometimes I would put my own work aside. And that would affect the quality of my work. That would affect the quality of my sleep. That would affect the quality of my day and of my life overall. So in that process, yes, I was quote unquote kind, but I wasn't kind to myself. I put emphasis and priority on others. And this is truly concerning because this happens to a lot of people. Oftentimes, when we say no to a person, we often correlate it to being unkind. But that's not true. To say no does not mean to be unkind. To say no, you can still be a kind person, but still have boundaries and limits. And I think that's the key idea. The idea is you always want to have limitations and boundaries, and you always want to put emphasis on yourself. Constantly being available does not translate to being kind because you're not being kind to yourself. And that is a priority. Always put yourself first. And let me go a bit more in depth with that. And so back to my story. In that sense, I always put others before myself in the hopes of or in the light of being kind. To me, saying no or saying later or saying I'll do it after was a sense of like, oh, I'm not being a nice person or oh, I'm not being considerate towards them. But in that process, I wasn't considerate to myself. So that's when I reflect. And then the following year, I was like, okay, you know what? Let me put more emphasis on myself. So now people, even my friends, would ask me, hey, would you mind helping me on this? Would you mind helping me on that? And don't get me wrong, I always try to help. But then I thought, you know what? Have I done this myself yet? Do I have enough time to do this? Does it make sense for me to do this right now? I would think of those stipulations. I would think of those scenarios. And after reflecting on those scenarios, I would think, if I'm available, I will help this person. Whereas if I'm not available, maybe I won't help this person. Maybe I'll help them later. Or maybe I'll help them in an alternative way. But I'll help them in a way in which they benefit and in a way which I don't benefit. And at the end of the day, even if they don't benefit, as long as it's not harming myself, that is my key priority and that is my key moment. And that's where it ties back into the whole idea of being kind does not always mean being available. Again, you have to emphasize kindness on yourself and you have to emphasize priority on yourself. And effectively, when you really think about it, let's say you don't put emphasis on yourself. Let's say you don't put priority on yourself. In that process, your quality of life and your quality of work is deterring in its own right. And when that deters, your mental sanity, your mental health, your physical health, all of that begins to decline. So now from the perspective of someone else, it's like, wow, this guy used to be so much better. This guy used to be able to help me on a higher level. This guy was more reliable. This guy was more fun or more jubilant to be around. But now it's like after prioritizing others, all of those qualities I just listed, they decrease increment by increment by increment. And when they decrease, now from an outside perspective, it's like, wow, maybe this guy isn't the kindest. Wow, maybe this guy doesn't have the best mood. Maybe he's not the best person to be around. So in the process of putting others before yourself, you are simultaneously hurting yourself and you're quote unquote hurting your little kindness image. And all this being said, I'm not saying don't be kind. Always be kind. Be the good in the world. Help other people. Help other people whenever you can, especially if it doesn't hurt you. But make sure to always help yourself first. Because you are the priority to yourself. All things come from you in your own life. And the priority and the emphasis should always be on yourself. And simultaneously, when you emphasize and prioritize yourself, you will also be able to help other people in the same process. That being said, being kind does not always mean being available. Thank you guys.